In many respects, a Top Fuel dragster is a little bit old school in some of the technology. I mean, look what I've got behind me right now. The motor itself, I mean, we're talking about old school stuff here. Pistons, conrods, crankshafts, a fuel system, yes, it's impressive. The clutch at the back, everything's on a grand scale. But when it comes to the technology, it's all pretty old-fashioned stuff. Where the true technology lies to a Top Fuel dragster is here, the electronics of the vehicle, which sits in front of the driver and just about midway point of this car. And this is where everything is managed, from the clutch timing, fuel system, the engine management, the mapping. Everything happens in the brains of the vehicle right here.
So in front of me is all of the electronics that we use to tune a Top Fuel engine. The front part here is the clutch system, we have the ignition system, and we also have the data logger. We also have the timer system here, which controls both the clutch, the fuel system, and the ignition system. The command module, it's basically a timer and air regulation system. The fuel system is basically a valve, and the valve on the system is designed to close as it goes down the track, which pushes all of the fuel to the motor. When we leave the start line, we don't need all the fuel, but once we're off the start line and the mass is moving, we start to feed a lot more fuel into it.
Our cannon here is like a hydraulic cylinder, which bypasses back into an accumulator at the front of the car. It runs through our needle valve here, which is controlling how fast our clutch is engaging. So our clutch controller has multiple stages we can work through speeds. We have 8 different needle valves that we can run at different times, and a regulator that controls our clutch pressure and our speed.
So the system here, we have a series of clutch flows and timers. The timers tell the clutch when to move, the flows tell the clutch how fast to move.
Our clutch will start activating about 1.1 seconds, and it'll go through. The last valve to go off is 2.6, and that'll control how quickly our clutch engages.
This is our data logger, which logs all of the information from the motor. There's probably 30, 40 channels on the car. Engine temperature, fuel flow, return fuel flow, blower boost, pan pressure, ignition. None of the computer system controls anything on the car, it only monitors. We're not allowed to change anything on the car with the computer. This box here tricks the ignition into thinking it's advanced or retarded. We use a lot of power to move the car off the start line, but once we get out off the start line, we want to reduce the plate load on the clutch. So we actually retard the ignition, which detunes the motor, which allows the clutch system to relax. You can then feed it back in as you get past the transition zone and off you go. We want the fuel system in league with the clutch system. We want to apply clutch when we're putting in fuel, but we also want to apply ignition when we're applying clutch. So one goes hand in hand.
So basically the whole thing is a big balancing act between these two control boxes here. We've got to balance our ignition system, how much time we're putting into it versus how much clutch is going in it versus how much fuel's coming in. Obviously, if we want to run the clutch harder, we need to make sure that there's ignition timing there so the engine has the power level right, and then we have to have the fuel to match to that so that we don't blow it up. It is a very simple system, but it's very robust for what we do. It's a very harsh environment here behind us in this engine, so it works very well for us.